Hello, welcome back to Recovery Demystified. My name's Early. I'll be your host. So happy to have y'all here today. I have another interview episode with my friend Robert. It's a little bit longer of a episode today, so I'm going to give y'all just a quick blip of an introduction. He mentions his contact with Taoism and that form of spirituality as something that helped him in his recovery. And I definitely think everyone should do whatever they want. And if spirituality helps you, get after it. And if you think spirituality is not for you, then do not get after it. But I also have found some closeness with the teachings of Taoism. A couple of things have helped me through some hard times, and something I return to again and again is this parable called What is Good and What is Bad. And I'm going to read that to y'all real quick, and then we'll get on with the interview with Robert. So the parable goes like this. A farmer and his son lived on a farm in the countryside. They owned a beautiful horse they cherished deeply. The farmer entered the horse into a village contest and won first prize along with some money. When his neighbors gathered to congratulate him, they said enviously, "How lucky you are to have such a remarkable horse." To the neighbors' puzzlement, the farmer responded, "Who knows what is good and what is bad?" Not long after, some thieves heard about the prize-winning horse and stole it during the night. The neighbors came to express their sympathy for the farmer's loss and again were confused by the farmer's calm response. Who knows what is good and what is bad? The next week, the spirited horse escaped from the thieves and miraculously returned to the farm with several other spectacular wild horses. Again, the astounded neighbors commented the farmer on his incredible good fortune, but his reaction was unchanged. Who knows what is good and what is bad? Not long after, the farmer's son fell off one of the horses and broke his leg. Compassionate neighbors again expressed their heartfelt sorrow. Who knows what is good or what is bad? Repeated the farmer. A short time later, the king's army passed through town requiring all young able-bodied men to be drafted for the war, but the farmer's son was passed over due to his badly broken leg. By this time, the neighbors brought some food and simply came to enjoy a meal with the farmer and his son. They expressed neither joy nor concern for the farmer's current circumstances because they knew how he would respond. I love this parable because sometimes when I'm going through something very stressful, I don't know what's going to happen next. I don't know that the stressful event is not going to be the domino that knocks over the next thing in my life that's actually going to be fucking amazing. So I go back to this, who knows what is good and what is bad during times of difficulty and stress, because honestly, like in the realm of addiction, it sucked so bad. You know what I mean? But now I'm doing this really exciting thing with my life where I have Recovery Demystified. I'm helping people. We're doing the work and I'm so happy. And I'm honestly really grateful that I went through all of the shit that I went through because it's brought me to the place where I'm at now. And, you know, who knows what is good and what is bad? I'm just really grateful for this teaching from Taoism. And I'm glad that Robert brought up that he enjoys Taoism and that type of like spiritual psychological exploration type of just part of being a human, you know? So I hope that learning about that parable helps you. And without further ado, here is my interview with Robert. Hello, Robert. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well. How are you, Early?
I'm doing good. Will you start by introducing yourself to the audience? Let them know your pronouns and what makes you, you.
Sure thing. I'm Robert Smith, he, him. I am 35, I'm a local, and I am a member of Ozark Holler Mutts, and kind of just trying to do a little return to the land sort of thing.
Nice. Well, we're here to talk about your story with addiction and recovery. So I'm interested what it was like for you being a kid. Then what were some of your first encounters with substances? When did things start to get bad? And when did you realize it was a problem? And then where did things go from there? So just start wherever you'd like.
Certainly. Yeah, it's pretty front-loaded for sure, the story. I was born and raised in like 1840s dog trot, and I didn't even have a name for over a month after I was born. They were really kind of just playing it by ear. And
what did they call you if you didn't have a name?
I can't remember.
Huh.
But yeah, my dad is quite the alcoholic. My mother is, undiagnosed with a personality disorder or two for sure. And it was a pretty hard scene. It wasn't like there was a lack of love, maybe even too much sometimes, but there was no form of consistency and plenty of anger and abuse too. But my first encounters with substances, I don't know. I mean, my dad had me drinking while sitting on his lap as early as I can remember. I have an early memory too. This isn't necessarily a mind-altering substance, but it'll just give you an idea of how strange things were there. I remember my mom sneaking my sister and I off to the root cellar once but giving us both caps of hydrogen peroxide and telling us not to tell my dad when I was like 4 or 5. Who could say what that was about?
Interesting.
Yeah, so I wasn't really aware of how rough my situation was until a kid moved in across the street when I was about 7 or 8. And as we became friends, he told me that I was living in a very abusive situation. I was like, oh, you know what? You're right. This isn't nice at all. And, I was kind of fresh to school and I kept getting kicked out of schools in early elementary, because of my intense ADHD, autism spectrum. Behavior wasn't really just well received in Winslow. Fayetteville Christian for a spell, West Fork. So,
what age were you when you were getting kicked out of school?
Like 5, 6, 7 was my little shuffle around time. Eventually, they got me on Ritalin, and I was at Winslow at that point. So it was Fayetteville Christian to West Fork to Winslow. And I thought Winslow was pretty cool once I got there. I'd had an extremely abusive teacher in West Fork. She sent me to the principal's office every single day for paddlings in 2nd grade. She eventually got fired for being an extremely abusive teacher.
Oh my God. Wait, they paddled you in grade school?
Yeah, we had the corporal punishment.
Goodness gracious, I'm so sorry.
Well,
when you were a kid and you were getting abused and traded around through schools and kicked out and stuff, especially at such a young age, what was your perspective on it then? Like, how did it feel?
I think I was mostly having a good time, in my opinion, but that's always the case with me when I'm in my moments and then I'm looking back, I'm like, oh, that was horrible. But, I mean, I was just a really wild player. And at that age, I was still enjoying the learning and such. It was such foundational things. I picked it up really well. And so I wasn't bucking against the teachers like I would later on. But I did just distract people constantly. Maybe played a little too wild. My parents, according to my aunt, she used a bit of a, I'm not sure if it's a slur, but it's not the correct term for a peoples, but she implied my parents raised us like a couple wild Native Americans, if you understand my meaning.
Yeah.
And we were pretty much just like barefoot and not receiving much like medical attention and stuff, and kind of just going around doing what we do, finding our own fun. They were both really preoccupied with their own things, like, cheating on each other, trying to find each other, cheating on each other, and, just all sorts of madness. So I don't know. I guess I just kind of found it exciting, opportunities to meet new people.
Yeah. And I'm sure when you're a kid at that age, it's kind of hard to process even what's going on.
Sure. Yeah. At that point, I didn't really know what it was like to stay at a school for very long.
Yeah. And it's like the weirdest things become normal to us.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So you said your first encounter with substances was just like early memories of your father drinking?
Yeah. He'd always give me the foam off the top of the beer. That was for me. And then for entertainment, sometimes he'd give me a beer.
At what age was that?
I remember one case when I was, at 35, almost 36, I just have to kind of ballpark my ages on a lot of things.
Yeah.
A lot of things I'll say 9 or 10, but in this case, 4 or 5, something like that. I remember drinking a beer and then scooting around in my little play school, like red and yellow car in the living room, pretending to like hallucinate, seeing all my friends and stuff, like pretending to be drunk. I was like driving in circles and be like, oh, hello, Jason. Hello, teacher. Hello. And just driving around in circles, having a good time. And it was amusing for him.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah.
So how did things progress from there? What was it like growing up?
Well, it never, until my teenage years, it was never like an invitation to get drunk from him, but there wasn't necessarily a structure to like prevent it either. So, I was stealing alcohol and, liquor from like atop the fridge and, an unregulated amount of Budweisers from his outdoor fridge. He drank like over a case in a day. And he was always drinking and like semi-working for himself. There were times when he was, times when he wasn't, but he was always fucking around with cars in the backyard. It was the most classic, trashed out Winslow Holler property, like 10 busted down vehicles and, free boats, degrading.
Mm-hmm.
He had a business called Smith Historic Reconstruction for a little while, and it was very interesting. He restored log cabins in the area, even the Wolf House in Norfolk, the oldest log cabin in Arkansas.
Huh.
He would get help with Mormons and such and do everything very period. It was really cool, and it was through the university. But he would sometimes like take on projects and then abandon them as personal ones. So we had a big old cabin that he once moved to our property that he fucked up and laid over on its side in our backyard. And there it stayed and rotted away until it just went away.
Oh my goodness. Until the earth took it back.
Uh-huh. I definitely put a nail through my foot in there once too, which wasn't any fun, but.
So what age are you when you're taking beers from the outdoor fridge and the liquor off of the...
Yeah. 10, 11 or something. So Winslow was a weird school before they closed. Elementary was kindergarten to 6th, and then high school was 7th to 12th. And I spent 2 years in high school, 7th and 8th there, at which point, I had a lot of discoveries and awakenings, such as alcohol and drugs. They had really interesting retro books in the library in the high school there that were not very critical of drugs. They were really just like taxonomy and information. And at a very young age, I was already kind of curious because of my across the road friends. He had an older brother who smoked, and we
smoked weed. You mean?
That's right. Yeah. Cigarettes probably came like around like 8 or 9 or something. And I started obtaining packs around like 13. But I would say probably like 10 or so for the alcohol, the drinking for fun, because we started to meet more people once we were in high school, and like Jason could convince people to come hang out with us, sometimes girls even. So at that point I had incentive. One time I snuck all the alcohol, the liquors were very, they were liqueurs and they were very expired. And one time I emptied a rollerball deodorant bottle and cleaned it out to the best of my ability and put old rotten Martini and Rossi liquor in it and brought it to school.
Oh my goodness.
In like 7th grade, and I was like sucking alcohol like a rollerball deodorant bottle. But anyway.
Very creative. Where there's a will, there's a way.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So do you remember, so you said kind of at that time it was more about fun? Like when did it turn from like your dad giving you beers for entertainment to you seeking them on your own? And was it purely for fun at that point?
Yeah, fun and like kind of spiritual exploration even. Like even at that age, I was really interested in like psychonautic endeavors and such. I'd come across Arrowhead and such and been reading about various drug experiences, and also those books in the high school just really kind of kicked it off. And I started having conversations with older kids that were impressed by like, my knowledge on that stuff. So alcohol was the most available one. I wanted to do any kind of drug, and I actually kind of cooled off of alcohol once I got access to pot, because I didn't really do much partying in high school. I ended up in West Fork and kind of just piddled around and smoked a lot. But the point whenever I started taking like 6 beers plus out of the fridge and such would have been like, again, probably like 10, 11, 12 or something like that, especially after we got back from Norfolk, at which point I was 12. I I'd experienced a lot more socializing at that point because we were living in a small town rather than on the edge of Devil's Den, where people come to visit you or you go to visit them, but you can't just walk around and see people.
Yeah. So, did the early endeavors with alcohol and weed give you the spiritual experience that you were searching for at that age?
Well, the first time I got drunk on liquor was pretty trippy, but no great revelations. That the pot, I don't know. I think so in its way. It's kind of like a cheat code in my opinion. Any kind of a psychedelic, like you'd be better off putting in the work and figuring it out by just researching the topics that interest you that you're trying to get insight into with drugs. But I mean, yeah, it serves some purposes. I'd say it probably had its own little disenfranchising effect on me, though. That might not have been as good because I do wish I'd pursued education, which I completely dropped by 9th grade. I decided I was not doing that and was going to live as a vagabond. So pot probably had a pretty big role in that choice too. I don't know if that was a positive thing or not, but that is what I did.
Yeah, so you're in the 9th grade. Do you want to be a vagabond? Did you jump in with both feet, or how did that go?
Once I decided I was going to be a fringe individual, I stopped taking ADHD medicine and started completely fucking off my grades and kind of taking an active role in being a distraction, really like worse than a class clown, like kind of doing things, to cause problems like bringing fireworks to school or putting like rotting food in like ceiling tiles and stuff like that.
Do you remember why you turned into someone trying to cause trouble like that?
Well, I don't know. I've always had a very like kind of passive put upon approach. As a kid, I got bullied a lot in Winslow. When I got to West Fork, it was pretty amazing. And for one, it was like culture shock because it was such a big city compared. And then West Fork was so cool to everyone that came the year after me, because the year after I left Winslow, it shut down and they got spread to various schools and a lot went to West Fork. And West Fork was just, everyone there was so nice to the Winslow folks. And there was a strange lack of bullies in West Fork. It really just wasn't a problem there across all the grades. It was in the high school, that is. I can't speak for anything else, but it was pretty amazing. And that really helped my sense of my self-confidence grow because I wasn't really there. But I would say that maybe the acts of rebellion were, just frustration and just trying to get my yayas out from having a bad home life. My mom was like abusive in every sense of the word. And I thought my dad was real cool growing up, the alcoholic. But when they divorced, a lot of things became more clear. But yeah, so I feel like I've always had like a bit of like a persecution complex and a bit of a, I don't know, just some anger that I have a tendency to like suppress instead of address or unleash. So that would probably be my guess about that. But also, I mean, recognizing that this world is pretty sick too. I mean, I was right about a lot of things at that age even.
It makes sense too when you grow up in an abusive environment or with parents with addiction and you're not necessarily learning any healthy ways to process your emotions or anything like that. And then you reach that teenage angst phase and you don't have the skills to deal with it. So you're just kind of going to act out. That makes perfect sense to me. Yeah.
And I even forgot to mention my dad was really encouraging me towards this. He's a strange guy. I do not talk to him anymore. He's been cut off for about 8 years. Sorry. Forgot how long it's been. But he, let's see, when I was like 12 or something, I think I was still at Winslow, I came in to the room and I was like, Dad, I think I'm too smart for school. It's just so frustrating. He's like, oh, I was afraid this day would come. Well, you're probably right about that, son. It's a stupid school, Winslow, and it's not the things that a kid needs to hear.
Yeah.
Unless you want them to, start fucking off school.
Yeah.
Didn't really seem to matter to him too much. He is one that really he's a very lonely person. He's pretty insufferably what's the word I'm looking for?
Like antisocial?
Pompous. He's antisocial, but he doesn't want to be. So he has a tendency of like doing everything he can to keep people around him. And I think he wanted me as like a permanent drinking buddy or something. So he did not discourage me from that and encouraged like antisocial views. And, he took me around. One of our favorite pastimes was to go find abandoned houses to rifle through and steal shit out of. At the time, I was like, oh, it's all free. It's abandoned, da-da-da. But yeah, I came by my antisocial behaviors quite not naturally, nurturally.
Yeah. It's a giving Winslow.
I am a Winslow individual.
So you felt too smart for school and your dad wanted to keep you around, but did you stay in school? What did you do?
I eventually got kicked out of West Fork after I'd stolen a bottle of Ambien from my dad at age, 9th grade. And I brought that to trade. I'd been doing it a little bit, it was one of the weirder drugs I had access to at that time. I hadn't gotten a trip yet. I brought it with the intention of trading it for acid. And so the guys involved in this, there was a guy I got it to, and he was doing the trade for me, and he gave it to another individual as our friend. I was there for all that, and so I'm like telling him, I'm like, hey man, take one orally. These things are stupid strong. They're weird. Don't mess with them. Like, don't play around. It's not even fun after that. But the guy, I don't know if he was trying to commit suicide. He did do that like a decade down the line, but he took 4 of them, crushed them up and snorted them in a class and almost died.
Goodness gracious. Yeah.
And
Ambien is like it's a benzo, I believe. And yeah, it's
strong.
It's meant to make you just fall right asleep.
Yeah. It's pretty weird. Taking one of those feels like taking like 20 Benadryl, I assume. But yeah, that almost killed him. Like, I saw him, he was all blue and delirious, but he was able to tell on me, and I went to juvie and got my first felony and got expelled. And so that really cemented the like, well, shit. I'm a year behind now. I was like, screw this.
How long were you in juvie for?
Oh, not that long. I think like 4 days or something.
Okay.
I have friends that have been in there for a very long time. That is the worst kind of jail you can get into.
I simply cannot believe society has decided it is acceptable to lock children in jail for anything.
Yeah, and it's like super jail. It's they really try to make it scary, and like they try to make it hold up to all the tropes and such about jail to scare the kids. It's ridiculous. But
the thing is, they're giving them practice to
100%.
Go back to jail again.
And a really awful view of the whole system.
Literally.
Yeah.
It's called trauma.
Yeah, dude. Yeah. Eye for an eye. That's the policy here.
So what happened after you got that felony and went to juvie?
Yeah, so I was expelled for the remainder of the year. I did get to do my community service in a really fun way. Rip Jonathan Lusk, the fellow that owned or ran the Reptile Museum here in Fayetteville for so long, kept getting bounced around. I worked with him when he was on Rolling Hills over there. Rolling Hills? No, I'm sorry. That one next to like Foghorns and AQ Chicken House and stuff. But I asked him, and he was like, yeah, I'd love that. So I did community service for him, and reptiles are one of my very favorite things. So that was really awesome for me.
Cool.
I got back to school and was like the bad boy, cool kid now. And I don't know, I had a good time, and pretty quickly got shuffled over to the alternative school that Northwest Arkansas used at the time to take care of, to get people on through that are probably going to drop out otherwise. So that was really cool. It was in a strip mall behind the drive-in theater here in Fayetteville on 112th. It used to be a telemarketing office, so all the walls are about 4 feet tall. It was a strange place to call school.
Weird. And it's just the kind of place where they give you whatever you can just to get your diploma or GED or whatever. Yeah.
It was like the hours were shorter, so it was like 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. And there was homework and stuff like that, but truly your grade was really just based on these multiple choice question tests, which is just perfect for me. So that wasn't a big deal. And I did actually, instead of my plan from like 9th grade on of dropping out when my grade did, because I enjoyed high school for the social aspect, I was like, well, I'll just drop out when my grade like graduates. I got my diploma. So pretty happy about that.
Heck yeah.
Looking back.
So you get your high school diploma through the alternative school, and are you 18 at that point, or what happened then?
So we'd all moved away from the cabin when my parents divorced. Pretty much months afterwards, my dad was out of there. We'd left right away. That was when I was like 13, something like that. So the cabin had been uninhabited for about like 5 years or so, 5 or 6 years. And I got a job at Devil's Den as a lifeguard because, I grew up right there on top of it. Been down there all the time. My mom used to work at the park in a couple places, so I have a lot of rapport with all the people there. So I got a job as a lifeguard, which is just kind of the local thing to do if you were a kid in that area, which was really fun. And I lived in the cabin again. Didn't really do much of anything at that time. I wasn't even socializing super hard. I kind of just hung out with my Winslow friends all the time and just back road driving and stuff.
Were you still getting fucked up at that point?
I started drinking really at that point. That was whenever I started to obtain like flats of old style and stuff and keep them around. And eventually, through a friend of mine, I'm sure she wouldn't mind her name being mentioned on here, Justine Eakins. She and I were developing a friendship in high school, and then afterwards we became like best friends for decades. And she was quite the socialite here in Fayetteville. She had been in Fayetteville schools for a while after West Fork, and then anxiety made it where she just kind of had to do like school from home through the school, like not homeschooling. And she was already, just party kid number one. And so I basically started living with her at an ex-teacher of mine, who I won't mention the name of, her house. Pretty much the year after like lifeguarding and stuff, like I was starting to get into this, but after that, I just was partying every single chance I got in Fayetteville, I'm also because my dad was not really opposed to stealing, or maybe just because I had it in me, I became quite an accomplished shoplifter since I wasn't really good at holding a job down. I moved through them pretty fast at that point. So I kind of just subsided off of like shoplifted sushi and beer and wine and stuff all the time. And we kind of just crashed on my ex-teacher's couch, who loved having the kids around, would drink with us and let us do whatever. I mean, she wanted it to be a safe space. And by the end of it, looking back, it was the safest place that any of us had available. So it was pretty cool.
And were you losing your jobs at that time just from getting fired or for quitting? Or was it all, did it have to do with drinking and hangovers?
100% drinking and hangovers. And, just my crappiness when I was on the job if I wasn't there.
Yeah.
I was at that age, strangely enough, maybe it was just kind of more expected of me or something. Like, honestly, I wasn't getting fired all that often. Technically often, because I'd have to be like, hey, I'm not going to be able to come back in today. Like, okay, whatever, don't bother kind of thing. Mm-hmm. But, I had some firings, but not too many at that point. I've had a lot more now that I've been a sober adult, honestly. But, I just turned into a real mess. And like some people found it lots of fun and amusing, and other people like not with much malice would be like, Robert, you're going to die in a ditch someday, dude. Like, maybe, maybe not.
And what was your perspective on it? Like, were you like, I'm having fun? Or were you like, this kind of sucks? Or what was your perspective on the escalation?
Yeah, I became pretty nihilistic and kind of a short-sighted hedonist. So I was really just like, oh, nothing matters. I can do whatever I want. Like, I'm just not going to hurt people and it'll be all good, which I didn't really accomplish that even that well. But I kept kind of escalating with that lifestyle until I realized, and this was one of my first downfalls, was I realized I could steal beer out of outdoor refrigerators. I don't even know if I should throw that information out there for other people that are at risk, but I was doing that and I got really bad about it. A year to the date of me figuring that out, I got caught doing it and very incarcerated. I've been in and out of jail for a while now, but I spent 3 months this time and ended up with like felony probation. And I don't know. I mean, I was doing so-so at that. I was holding down some jobs sometimes, but also still screwing them up, still drinking and all. And eventually I found myself on a dry spell with work for a while. I probably could have applied myself more, but I was doing what I was doing. And my probation officer threatened me that I was going to go back to jail if I didn't find a job. And I took that a little further in my mind than maybe I should have. I didn't really understand how that whole process goes. Like, yeah, they might do that to you. They might throw you in for a couple of days and put you back out. But I was like, oh, hell no, I'm not going back. And my friends were preparing to go out west just kind of for the heck of it. And so I threw in with them, and that was the beginning of me actually living that vagabond life I'd been so interested in from a young age.
I'm interested, when you went to jail for those 3 months and then got out and had the felony charges and everything, did you ever have a thought of quitting drinking at that point? Or did you get out and be like, where the fuck is the nearest beer? I need one immediately.
The latter. Hardcore. Amazingly enough, because I had having gone to West Fork is really strange to then find yourself in like West Fork High School. If you find yourself in the jail after that, about half the jailers are going to be your peers from West Fork. So that's kind of weird. But one of them, who I'd been kind of having more and more rapport with towards the end there, offered to let me out at midnight the day before. I was like, well, that sounds like, yeah, let's go. And so I just, beelined for Jimmy John's, which is where me and most of my friends had been working for a while. And they let me use the phone to get a hold of some people. And they came and picked me up, and we promptly started drinking off of a case of stolen tequila somebody had obtained from their job.
Oh, my goodness.
A couple days before. So, yeah, we just jumped right back in.
Yeah. So that makes sense to me because I also drank immediately every time after getting out of jail. But, for some people, they have something like that. Yeah. And bless their hearts.
Yeah.
So you are afraid of like screwing up your probation, and then someone offers you a ride out west, and kind of what happens there.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure a part of me understood that wasn't necessarily the most sensible move that, I was very inclined to take risks and live a dramatic life at the time.
Fits with the nihilism you mentioned earlier.
Yeah, and it's probably full of the magical thinking and Peter Pan complex and all that good stuff. And I was just like, yeah, I'm gonna go live my story. And I've always had aspirations to write. I figured that I had to have some kind of wild adventures if I wanted to put anything down worthwhile. So. It just seemed like the absolute best choice. And hey, I wouldn't go back and change it necessarily, but I just recognize it as probably not the healthiest choice. But it was an amazing time. I spent 10 months out that first go around. And, even though I was lying about my identity and stuff, I was in handcuffs 3 times on that trip, and one time even in Canada, and I still didn't get taken down.
What? They never brought you back to jail because you just lied about your name, or?
Yeah, I just lied about stuff, and they didn't feel like troubling with me or something. But yeah, a couple times twice, my friend had loaned me his birth certificate to pretend to be him, and I got the information on it wrong every single time I tried to tell them I was him. But yeah, West Coast cops, they just got a little bigger things to deal with, I guess. So I came back and I was pretty messed up and drinking, and I actually ended up in a situation where I was middlemaning a couple like prescription drugs between people and getting given benzos for the trouble. And I got addicted to Klonopin as well as my drinking, and I got caught in about 2 months after I came back, and ended up in jail for a few months.
How did you get caught?
I was stealing at Walmart, shoplifting.
Yeah.
And I actually didn't even get caught shoplifting, but I was out in the parking lot all fucked up, and I saw a cop driving to the parking lot, so I just started furtively jumping around, running through the cars and crap. He was like, what?
Suspicious behavior.
Yeah. So I got caught. And I resisted even and tried to run away, got tackled and stuff. And
oh my God.
That wasn't fun. My shoulders always hurt from that ever since. That couldn't have gone better, though. I was in there for a month and then I was out, and they put me back on unsupervised probation. This is because the fellow that, the couple that drove me out there, the whole time I'd been doing things before I got caught. I'd been working for them in a sense too, and I guess that plus just us being really close, they're really grateful for me, and they put up all the money that was required, which was like $1,300 almost.
Goodness.
Yeah, to keep me out of prison because. Again, I was applying myself at this point, but I couldn't find a job, couldn't find the money to pay this stuff up before my court date. And so they said, and I still want to pay them back, and I'm going to pay you guys back. But they were like, well, happy birthday, like pay us back if you can, kind of thing. And and they put on unsupervised probation, and it basically was just over at that point.
So if I'm getting this right, you can pay your way out of supervised probation with $1,300 and get unsupervised? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, probably so.
God.
I mean, cishet male white privilege has a lot going for it, of course, in the legal system.
Yeah, and just like the debtor's prison type of thing where it's like some sort of menial amount of money that seems like a huge amount to someone who's fucked up on the streets, but isn't that much to like anyone like with a normal job or wealth that you can just like buy your way to better privilege is an extremely frustrating part of our legal system.
Oh, it's madness. It's calculated and it works like a Swiss watch.
So
disenfranchisement.
At that point, are you questioning your drinking? Like when are you like, something's got to change? Like when's that turning point for you?
At that point, I still wasn't really questioning my drinking, no.
And what age were you then?
That would have been 22 probably, or yep, I'd have been 22 then.
So what was your perspective? Just like everything else is the problem and I'm fine, or like what was your rationale? Kind
of that, and maybe just maybe a position that I don't need to be fine, that I don't need to be healthy. Kind of thing.
Back to the nihilism.
Yeah. I spent the time in Fayetteville after that kind of just trying to work. I wanted to have more means for sure. And so I was actually starting to kind of like figure out some amount of moderation. Oh, and I stopped stealing after that point. Beer, I should say. I stopped going into outdoor freezers stealing beer. Mm-hmm. That was a really crazy thing. I had some really crazy confrontations before I even got arrested on that one too.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Not a good thing to be doing at all. Like actually incredibly dangerous.
Great way to get yourself shot.
Yeah, or any kind of, lots of craziness in that. So I was just kind of like working, and I'd had some like jobs already, waiting tables, and that's kind of just how I'd try to hold it together. And I did that for a bit, and that wasn't working out. And I did get fired from the whole twin kitchen. And it was wintertime. And my dad and I were really not getting along. I was living with him in a house that he had bought down in South Fayetteville that he was trying to renovate so that he could use it as a rental. But I don't think that ever happened. I was kind of just squatting there. My friends called it the squatter house. We used to party there from time to time. And we were really, really not getting along. Like almost fighting physically sometimes. And I was like, yeah, screw this. And I just didn't even tell him or anything, but I just hitchhiked off down to Austin and had a pretty bad time there, honestly. It was interesting, but craziest story of my life happened on Christmas Day there. I got a ride after all of our stuff. I started dating this girl I met there for a few days, and all of our stuff got destroyed by some malicious people, like backpack arms cut off, rotten milk, cayenne pepper spread into everything, like super psycho stuff. And I'd grown tired of our relationship also. She was schizophrenic, and Mike had a lot of hallucinations and stuff, and was a liability. I'm not positive if she didn't have a role in this thing that happened. Anyway, I spent the last of my food stamps on her that following morning, Christmas Day. I was like, hey, Merry Christmas, but I'm gonna head for New Orleans now. She was like, yeah, that's fine, bye. hitchhiking out of town, I got picked up by the original voice of Charlie Brown, Peter Robbins.
What?
Yeah. He was there to give a Christmas card to Lance Armstrong, who wouldn't see him. And when I found him, he was delivering Christmas cards to the police station. And I just asked him if he knew where 71 South was. And he was like, well, no, I don't. But if you want to follow me, I can take you there. I was like, all right, this guy seems harmless enough, I guess.
Funny.
Yeah, and I followed him into the police station. He's all like, I'm Charlie Brown. I want to give you guys like Christmas cards and shit. And he was weird looking. And he's got this like scruffy dude standing behind him in the backpack and stuff. Like, yeah, I don't think they believed him at all. But so we rode around town for a little while and he just like ranted and stuff. He's a very crazy man. He died not that long ago.
So when you were in Austin, were you just like tramping? Were you homeless? Like, yeah.
Yeah. Showering up at the Ark and stuff. I wasn't there very long. A month, something like that. I didn't have any friends or anything down there to meet up with or anything, so it's kind of just wandering around.
Yeah.
That's how I did it usually, though. I mean, I didn't like having a road dog. I did the first time around, and we have never been friends since, so I didn't really want anything like that to happen again. So that was my second time out. It wasn't very fun. So I ride with Peter Robbins, Charlie Brown. He's like, I'll drive you as far as your conversation's enjoyable. And like the whole time he's like yelling abusive things out the windows at people and like saying horrible things to people at gas stations when they're there. Just crazy fella. But he gave me $200 just out of the blue at a gas station, and drove me so far. And I got to Houston that night on Christmas, and I took a hotel to sleep in for the first time of that trip, just because I could.
$200, forget about it.
Yeah. And I was watching TV, and only an hour later, after I had gotten my hotel, evidently a falling branch had took out a homeless fella sleeping in the park nearby where I was. I'm like, dude, that could have been me if it wasn't for Charlie Brown. So that was crazy. Went down to New Orleans for a little while, and nothing commentable happened there. It's pretty rough. I wasn't thinking about it, but it's a rough place to be in the middle of winter outside with no friends. So I think I was only there for about 2 weeks, and then I begged a Greyhound off of my aunt to drive me back to town. Yeah. I took off about a month after that to hitchhike to San Diego and took a flight to Hawaii.
Nice. Mm-hmm. So are you just drinking? Is it escalating? Are you doing other drugs? Like, are you just still stuck in that nihilism, searching for something more? Like, what's going on through that phase? Definitely
still like searching outward and inward, and just drinking and top priority alcohol, second priority if it's possible pot, but and then I just rolled cigarettes out of butts, or would harass somebody to smoke and be like, spare a square, and be like, what are you saying? Like, square, get a square. Like, yeah, okay, whatever, go away. Like,
typical.
Yeah.
So at what point do you have your moment where you think something needs to change?
It was in Hawaii. So it's still winter, and I'm still not happy with home and such. And I was like, well, I mean, that didn't work, but I can do something better. I can do this. So I was like, I'll just scrounge up money for a plane ticket from San Diego. I'd heard of Allegiant was kind of new at that point, and they were doing stupid cheap tickets. So I did that, and I bought my ticket. Like 2 weeks from whenever I decided I was going to leave town, I was like, I can definitely make it to San Diego in that amount of time. And yeah, I just kind of squared up with everybody and said my goodbyes. My dad and I were getting along more now that we had this like kind of obvious like end to our problems, coming up. So, and I did. I started hitchhiking in the middle of winter. Stood in like a foot of snow in Oklahoma City and such, and got there. Met some cool people. Heard some crazy stories. I got my one and only truck driver ride. Of like 3 years of like almost constant hitchhiking, only had one truck driver ever pick me up. Huh. Cool guy though. And he told me the craziest story that I've ever heard. Not that I can tell, but his story was mad. It was about like cartel stuff. Got to San Diego and spent a little time there. First night I was there, I got invited to a freaking house show for the metal band Exhumed for free. That was so cool. Huh. And kind of just spent like a week there in San Diego piddling around. I always make sure to have food stamps when I'm out doing that stuff. So I don't really spend too much time. Almost never do I spend any time spanging or busking or anything like that. Or for people not familiar with the jargon, begging for money. I usually just would prefer to like use my food stamps and shoplift if I wanted something.
And were you just still stealing alcohol that whole time?
Yeah, I was still shoplifting for alcohol and food at that time too. So I got to Hawaii, and it's just so fucking hard to shoplift in Hawaii. Like, it is not easy there. It's a completely different thing. It's just, I don't know. They're watching for it because it's expensive or something, but it was just, it immediately was off the list, at which point I started realizing things, and I had to spend a lot more time sober and stuff. And how badly I wanted a place of my own there, which is a little more doable in Hawaii, not in a respectful way at all, like kind of the trashiest of like colonial crap, but like you can totally just post up anywhere on the side of the wood. If it's just like if it's like fallow land, nobody's going to say anything. And you can actually camp legally on most of the beaches. And everybody there is scrabbling for a little piece of land to do something. I was just on Oahu. I didn't have the money to island hop or anything. It was just the mood there kind of almost infected me. And I was like, you don't have to have a lot to do something and be like some form of like, maybe not successful, but to be producing and to, I don't know, to be growing. And I got interested in growth at that time, like 23 years old or so. And I started making like very specific plans. I hadn't cut off my dad at this point. So like there was still 3 acres out in Winslow, Devil's Den area, fallow land with a structure on it. I was like, I need to get out there. I need to start making it good. I was thinking about like making a terraced, like landscaped, nice Airbnb thing, and building a trail down to the Butterfield Coach. I felt like this would be pretty doable with my previous like relationships with Devil's Den and stuff. So I was like coming up with ideas and such, and getting antsy about being in Hawaii, and spent half a year there, and eventually got another plane ticket back.
So since you weren't able to steal anymore and you started sobering up a little bit and getting all these new ideas, were you like completely sober? Like what?
No,
what
I was still drinking as much as I could.
As much as you could.
Yeah, but it was a lot harder there, and I had to like I had to be really not calculate, but I had to like plan it ahead. So I was like only drinking like Steel Reserve 40s because I'd like calculated that's like the most alcohol that you could pour, like, or the cheapest alcohol. And it makes me nauseous just when you say Steel Reserve. No kidding. Well, I mean, good thing they didn't have the camo Pentiple X Ice Black or whatever that crap is.
God, or freaking...
That stuff tastes like motor oil.
The like 12% Four Loko or something.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Yeah. But so when you're having the accidental little bits of sobriety and feeling this like inspiration and stuff, are you cognizant of the connection there, or is it just all like...
Yeah, I started realizing that, and I'd taken interest in Taoism in like age 18, 19, because my best friend in high school, who was actually a really great guy, and his dad, who wouldn't mind his name being shared, Patrick Holloman, he's an acupuncturist and holistic doctor, and teaches Tai Chi and stuff here in Fayetteville. He randomly, a couple years down the line, just on Facebook was like, hey, I think you like Taoism. Can I send you a bunch of books on it? And I was like, wow, okay.
Cool.
And I had those, and I never really like looked into it. But then around then, I started recognizing just how much it really did resonate with me. And I am of a mind that a healthy, not religious, but spiritual interest and application can be an excellent tool for avoiding substance abuse. It just gives you an inner respite. As delusional as it may be, that comfort, you can find it in there instead of having to try to find it in a bottle. So it was helping. It wasn't stopping it or anything. But after that, I left Hawaii to go to the pot scene that I'd been returning to for a couple years after that first time I'd been out there. So I started trimming in 2010. And I think that was just my second time actually now, coming out in 2013 from Hawaii. And I met a girl in Eureka, California, and she was staying in a halfway house. So we didn't have like the most intimate and like consistent relationship. But she was really encouraging of all these like plans that I'd written down and stuff while I was in Hawaii, and was now like hoping to like make some money in the trim scene to bring back to accomplish these things. And that was cool and it was encouraging. We stayed in touch and such afterwards, but we didn't really ever date again. But
was she addicted at all, or did she know about that you had problems or anything?
Yeah, we were both alcoholics still, and my alcoholism got a lot worse once I got back to Humboldt County, where I was getting money. I was able to shoplift easily enough again. You spent any time in Arcata?
Sure enough.
Yeah, so the Schwilly tree, I would definitely help them add caps to that pile. But I also would have to rein myself in whenever I'd get taken back up to the mountain and stuff. So it was when I started to grow and get more opportunity and get like treated with a little more respect and like offered like opportunities and stuff. And it was a really great time to learn about how to be respectful of various minorities and such, because the place that I ended up working that year, they called it Queer Camp 2. And I was like the token cishet guy, because it was like 40, people moving through all the time, and they're all different walks of life, but nobody was like cis or het or anything like that. So that was awesome. That was a really, really, really educational experience. And I was treated with a lot of like patience and such, which was really cool. And I didn't utilize that as well as I could have, but definitely a lot better than the previous time I'd been out trimming, which I didn't bring anything back that time. But I brought back a couple $1,000s in product, really, but the value of about a couple $1,000s. And I did it. I went out to the cabin and started trying to clean it up a bit. It was in really bad shape. It had extensive water damage and black mold even as I was growing up there. Which did contribute to some problems in my life. But I tried to just kind of seal up one little room and such, and I started trying to grow weed out there. And that was a really sober time, too, because I was just living on food stamps and BioLife, hitchhiking in and out of Devil's Den twice a week to go do
donate
BioLife. Plasma. Yeah. And it was pretty frugal and really depressing, and the black mold was absolutely getting to me. I was pretty bad for a while after that and just down. And it didn't really pan out very well at all.
Yeah, I was going to say, did you bring that feeling of inspiration back with you? And then was like the accidental poor person sobriety, was it of value or was it just frustrating, or how was that experience?
I would say that it was valuable. I didn't like it very much, though. But yeah, I needed it just to learn patience and temperance and such, even if it's forced, and it lowered my self-esteem a lot. Or maybe it was just, I don't know, incidentally there. But I got into a kind of crappy relationship right afterwards, a short-lived one. It was based on the resources that I had. And once those went away, so did the relationship. And that was pretty depressing. After that, I don't know. I was kind of just here in town and just doing that thing, kind of just drinking. I started applying myself to the bars more, which, is more expensive, but it does keep you like a little more sober. Not long after that, I guess I met the really like definingly toxic romantic relationship of my life, which went on for about a year.
Were both of y'all in addiction in that relationship?
It was very much a shared thing. She had a daughter, and we'd probably polish off the bottom third of a fifth of McCormick before we drove her to preschool.
In the morning?
Yeah. It was intense.
Yeah.
And we were both super toxic and a lot of, just a lot of abusive language and eventually abusive behavior and such entered into the relationship. And it was terrible. And I tried to get out a few times. Eventually, after one of our terrible, terrible fights, she left and was away for a while. And I was like, I can do this. I can get out of here. And a friend of mine offered to drive me out west again. And as I was leaving, we'd been living with my dad, by the way, again, in his upstairs. He's super cool with that because, again, he loves having a captive audience. I mean, he would have paid for us to live there for the rest of his fucking life, probably. And for reasons I was soon to find out. I told him when I was leaving, I was like, hey, she has in no uncertain terms expressed interest in screwing my entire patrilineage, and only in a half joking voice. If you happen to do that, I will have to disown you. We will no longer be talking. It's like,
oh my God. That'd be nothing short of 10 out of 10 awkward.
Yeah. Well, yeah, not even a fun conversation to have, but I guess it was relevant. I found out it took about 3 months for me to cave and come back. And we went right back to the usual, camping out in Dad's upstairs, drinking our ass off. And everything's just felt completely wrong. And I knew something was off. And eventually, like a toxic person in a toxic relationship, I went into the old texts in this phone that we were now sharing. It was a phone my dad had loaned her when I was gone. And the very bottom ones were just heinous, explicit, sexual texts from my dad.
Oh God!
Just like discussing their things that had been going on the whole time. And I'd known that they had an altercation where the cops had to come and had to take my dad to jail. And that was the last time she spent any nights there at that house, because she stayed after I left.
Goodness.
Yeah, and then I was just like, okay, goodbye, all you fuckers.
Yeah. So what happened after that? Did your drinking increase? Did you start have more moments of clarity? Like, when did you finally decide to quit? It
changed a lot in nature, for sure. So right after that, my friend came and rescued me, because it was just, I don't know, I was beside myself, and took me to her parents' place down in Greers Ferry for like a week or so, just to kind of sit and decompress, and eventually came back, and I've always been super, super lucky, but I've got a really, despite all our flaws, a really loving friend group, and a lot more back when, not with the love, but more friends. And so one of my friends was like, hey, dude, I've been honestly just renting my apartment for my 2 rabbits for the last half a year or so. It's like, you can just stay there until you have a job, and then you can take over the rent. I was like, what? And it was also in this really cool place up on Mount Sequoia, where all of my friends were living at the time. And people called it the Chicken House back in the day. It's Anna Place. This is a big rock building. It was apartmentalized. My friend, my bestie from high school on, Justine, was there. An ex of mine that I was still in great communication with, and the girl that drove us out to California was living downstairs there.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, it was just amazing. And
did your perspective change now with the new friend group around?
Well, getting plugged back into the core of the best of my old friend group really is kind of what that was. Because I was completely isolated when I was in that relationship. Yeah, it was really healthy. And I eventually ended up working in a kitchen, which was fine. With a very agreeable crew. And I was pretty much only drinking out on the street. I don't really know how I was doing it, because I was going out to the Dixon Street 2 or 3 times a night or a week on a, part-time kitchen pay rate. But, I was doing it on my own. I wasn't begging or anything like that, or selling even at the time. So, the drinking definitely got very much more civilized. I didn't drink myself into blackouts so much as brownouts, and I wasn't throwing up and or getting arrested. I stopped getting arrested in 2023, but I was arrested about 34 times before that. Goodness gracious.
So let me know, what was the exact moment, what pushed you to you're in long-term sobriety now. What was the cusp? What happened there?
Well, I had gotten curious and experimenting. I had experimented a bit. I made my ex that I was just describing and I we were supposed to go sober at Christmas once, right before it all ended. We did a month. They eventually caved. A couple of years go by of me just kind of doing the kitchen thing and just kind of taking it easy and not really seeing anybody and kind of just building friends again. My ex that I keep describing, her ex and baby daddy, went on a really hardcore what's the word? Just smear campaign to try to get me completely canceled here in town. I think it worked in some crowds, but I was able to still find a lot of good community still. And then the things he was saying about me were lies. I'm not going to get that, whatever. I'm not going to get down into that Jerry Springer crap. But yeah, I just kind of was hanging out for a while. And then one of my best friends, very close to that circle, another West Fork kid as myself, been super close since West Fork. She died of fentanyl cocaine. And that was such a horrible blow to us all. And she was really popular here in Fayetteville. So it was a very wide-reaching and unpleasant, sad thing. Yeah. And someone I'd known for a long time, she and I connected and started dating after that. And she hadn't really even broken up with her boyfriend or anything. So it was a really uncomfortable beginning. This relationship was not as bad as the last one, but we still broke up every month, and we're just as bad of alcoholics. And I, again, tried to make us quit for the sake of our relationship and our own health. Again, went about a month again. My ex, got back on it, and everything was just so bad, and my life was about to fall apart. I'd gotten into waiting tables at this point, and I was about to, screw up my job and lose that. So, I just called it and I was like, I'm sorry, if you can quit drinking, we can do this, but she couldn't. So we didn't. And I was a half a year behind on my rent at this point.
Damn.
So I was like, okay, well, I definitely need to be sober right now. So I quit for half a year of drinking, and really just kept to myself, and kept waiting tables there. And eventually it shouldn't have gotten to me. I blame the work stress. It was probably also just boredom. I eventually was having a lot of conflicts with this 19-year-old that I worked with there, and we were about to fight and stuff. And I was just getting so upset. And eventually I drank a beer one night at work because we were allowed to drink there. Mm-hmm. And I decided to go out after that. And then I started drinking again. I'd gotten my rent paid off, so I was like, it'll be fine.
Did it pick back up right to the same pace you were at before?
It was getting there. It was, because I had gotten a lot more moderation at this point, by just drinking and, having, more mature people around me, I was having a little hard of a time, and I was also really struggling to make enough money at the job. It was just kind of having a lull, and it was just kind of rough. So I was getting a little frustrated, and I was even kind of considering just hitting the road and hitchhiking and seeing what it would be like again. This is 2021, the year after COVID. And then a very talented local musician connected me with a talented farmer out in Oklahoma that needed some emergency assistance with some things out there. A situation had gotten out of hand, and my friend knew that I had spent a lot of time out there in California working on that stuff. So we got connected, and now that fellow, I'm sure he's hearing me, and some of you know who I'm talking about. It's one of my very best friends, and I got into working for him, and I quit my job waiting tables there and kind of just lived out there for a while. And I was trying to quit, but I was also kind of falling back into the alcohol. It was sort of a seesaw at that point. But I was also developing a relationship that ended up being the most healthy and loving relationship so far of my life. It lasted 3 years. And we were both definitely connecting on our sober curiosity, because I was back into drinking for about 3 months at this point, Mm-hmm. And not that long after that, after we got together, probably about another 3 months. It was probably about a 6 month of falling off the wagon there. We decided to go back at it, and that was, I guess, 2022, and that was when I quit permanently.
And how was that for you? You'd had a 6 month stretch, you've had other month-long stretches. Mm-hmm. What was different this time? Really, what was different in my emotional state was maybe a lot more hope and plans for the future. And then I would definitely credit the success for the fact that we had each other to support each other. And also, as anyone
it's not the Buddha will. We kind of like, policed each other, and we're like a little competitive, like we like, if you felt like you're about to start drinking, you'd be like, they would think I was a jackass. So,
you had accountability.
I had accountability. Yeah.
That's huge. What else are you using as coping skills during that time, or was it just purely accountability worked for you?
Oh, well, I was leaning into our THC use, of course, more so. I also developed a strong sweet tooth. I'd never liked sweets until I started quitting drinking, like at all. Nothing. Maybe a little ice cream every now and then, but I have never kicked my Coca-Cola problem since then. And I definitely started using a lot more sugar and probably gained like 20 pounds. But, that's kind of cool in its way, too. I've always been a little skinny. And, we were just kind of making plans. They found the whole homesteading thing to be a very, logical choice. And, it was a very strong goal of mine. And we decided that we could do that together. That's part of figuring out if we wanted to be in a long-term relationship. And so we pursued that. And it just got really good. We were pretty lonely, as a lot of people were, after COVID and stuff. I mean, I don't think either of us had a lot of experience in how to keep a social life and a committed, monogamous relationship running. So, we weren't getting as much socializing as maybe we would have liked to have, but we did all right.
Did you have any struggles during those early days, or was it mostly like you'd use THC and you'd use your accountability and you'd drink a Coca-Cola and you'd be chill? Or were you ever did you ever have kind of problems with cravings or anything?
Not really.
No.
My alcohol issue is very strongly rooted in a social need for interaction and acceptance and stuff. Whenever I have a romantic partner, it is a lot easier for me to quit anything, just to exercise willpower with just about anything, honestly. And I'd been getting a lot more interested in just the concept of willpower. It was getting very interesting to me. I was leaning more so still into spiritual readings and not really practice or anything like that. But just the role that willpower plays and the obvious fact that our willpower is intentionally eroded by the consumerist powers that be, things like that. I don't want to be a sucker,
Mm-hmm.
I feel kind of controlled whenever I'm just going out to drink and repeat the same silly circle jerk conversations again and again.
Right. So this time, did it just kind of feel different?
Yeah, it definitely felt permanent. It was like, because, I would say the previous time, the 6 months when I had to for money reasons and such, and just kind of my own mental convalescence. I still missed it. I was like, gosh, I just wish I could be going to the bars and stuff, but alcohol's so bad. But that time around, I was just like, I don't really miss any of these things. And I did have the few friends that I still, valued and to the same capacity, even without the alcohol. So it was pretty easy. I don't really get physical itches for things. Say I smoked cigarettes pretty consistently from age 12, and I still never a nicotine craving. Only when I tried to learn how to drive a really messed up stick shift when I was 16, and in terrible fights in that really toxic first relationship I described. Yeah, beyond that, I never, unless I was drinking, of course, and then it's like, oh God, give me it.
So what do you attribute the change in this time?
Well, probably my mindscape, my philosophical, spiritual mindscape. Just for the first time in my life being in a safe, healthy relationship. And, sadly enough, I'd never really gotten that until that point, not to the degree that I wanted.
Yeah, definitely having loving, accepting relationships and healthier surroundings can have a huge effect on our psychiatric landscape, so that makes sense to me.
Yeah, fill in that hole that a person's trying to so desperately.
And how long have you been continuously sober for at this point?
Yeah, quit mid-January 2022. So like 3 and some change.
Cool. And how did the use of THC benefit you during that time? And I think I heard you say maybe you're shying away from that now. So how did it benefit you? And now how did you decide that it was time to be done with THC?
Oh, yeah. So the THC, it was pretty good in the very beginning there, I'm sure, because there's a lot of agitation and such and just dissatisfaction with quitting alcohol. And I find, THC makes you pretty boring and lazy and complacent. So it was pretty easy to just do that and veg and play video games. THC, sugar, video games, really, really easy harm reduction replacements for alcohol. Not necessarily good things in their own right, but, if you're someone that needs to like step away from just crutches and stuff, then that might be an option. But it was pretty good. And let me think here. It wasn't really all that much longer. Oh, wait, no, that's not true. It was a year after. We actually quit THC together too, and stayed quit of that for a year and some change. And our relationship, was eventually suffering and such, and we were suffering on our own, and we eventually went back to THC. It was probably a few months before we eventually hung it up. But and we still have an excellent relationship, as anybody in Recovery Demystified knows. Yeah. And
did it feel like the THC just felt like harm reduction? Like this is going to be less bad than drinking, basically? But
both of us, I speak for myself. I can't necessarily say this certainly about them, but I am still quite the sensation junkie. I can't help it. Even when I'm trying to be mindful about it, it's like if I have something I'm allowing myself to do, it's like, well, yeah, why wouldn't I go further? So we kept upping our THC use to a absurd amount through edibles that we were making. We were making concentrate and then making edibles with that. And we're taking over the course of the day, 500 milligrams of THC. And we were just so bored and so drained all the time from that much THC. We just hated it. And we both are without a job at the moment. And we're like, we can do this. Why not? Let's do this. And I quit because I was sick and I couldn't smoke for about 4 days. And I was like, I'm just doing this. And then they were like, yeah, let's do it together. And we did. And that was the hardest quit I've ever had in my life by miles.
What was so hard about it?
All the physical withdrawals they say don't happen. We couldn't eat more than half a slice of pizza for 3 weeks in a day. We're getting 3 hours of sleep a night, if that. I had terrible sleep last night from my THC withdrawals, but not like it was back then.
Yeah.
And emotionally, just the rawest I think I've ever been for any sustained amount of time. It was hard.
Dang.
Yeah.
And so now you're on your raw dog in life, is that right?
Well, as I said, it's really hard. I actually have consumed THC again since I said I was going to quit a couple days ago. It's this really old stuff that I don't even know if it's really working, but I'm putting it on Mullen and hitting it after dark to try to get myself ready for bed.
Yeah.
It didn't really work that well last night, honestly.
Yeah.
But
so you're still working on...
I've decided I'm going to peter it down because those... Not that I'm where I was when we quit as a couple, that level of addiction, but it's harder on your own. It's a lot harder without that accountability factor. So I'm quitting, but I'm going to have to taper it, it looks like.
Yeah, that's okay. You'll get there.
I think so. I'm definitely tired of it.
Yeah, that makes sense. It works till it doesn't type of thing.
Yeah, I've gotten everything and I could ever possibly get from THC. You know, and I'm just tired of doing the same reflexive thing over and over again.
All right. So sort of getting near the end of our time here. I'm interested if you would let the listeners know if there's something you think people do not understand about addiction. Yeah.
Let me think for just a moment there if I can dredge anything up. Well, I think that people just overestimate our traditional sense of individuality. And I think people don't really understand how permeable the membranes between the individual and society are. And I think recognizing how strongly we are influenced by everything that makes up our surroundings, I think that we make our choices more so off outside stimulus than inside stimulus these days. And I think that people feel too immune to impression and even propaganda and stuff. And I would say that just not feeling weak or bad or anything about recognizing that you are very much influenced by things that you have no perception of it happening is one of the first steps to not being victimized by things.
That makes sense. Yeah, I say it all the time. Like, we're all connected and there's things going on in our brains that we don't have direct access to. So it makes sense what you're saying that, yeah, even if you don't think you're influenced by advertising or by seeing other people out drinking or using, sometimes that stuff just seeps in.
Yeah. And like you were saying, how we're connected. I mean, maybe it reminds me of how, the more empathic around us, like, everyone's got mirror neurons. Mirror neurons react to such subtle keys that you might say it's just like a psychic phenomena, in each other. And the more empathic you are, the more you might be impressed by things like that.
Right. And the last question I have for you is, if you could, I guess it's not really a question, but If you could speak to someone who's like deep in the bullshit, the hardest part of their addiction, if you could say something to them, what would you say?
Well, you can't know how good it is until you've gotten a taste of it. And you deserve it, to exercise patience, even if you hate it, is one of the first steps, just set it down and, see how long you can go. Like, even if it feels like you're holding your breath, like, just keep doing that. Keep stretching those muscles, because, there's such a better life out there for you.
Hell yeah. Nobody is too far gone, and it can always get better.
Yeah.
I promise.
Yeah.
All right. Well, it's been really nice talking to you today. Thanks for coming on and telling your story.
Yeah, it was really pleasant to do. And I encourage anybody else to go ahead and jump on the horse. This was nice. Thank you, Early.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Recovery Demystified is produced and edited by me, Early Brunner. Stevie Pettit made our logo. Our social media manager is Kaylee Bausch. Logan Bragg wrote our beautiful theme music. We are entirely supported by donations as a 501c3 nonprofit. Your tax-deductible donations can be made to our Venmo or to our PayPal at Recovery Demystified. May you be happy and free, dear listener.